Unsolved comes the Unsolved FearCast.
Yay, Unsolved FearCast, yet another episode. Welcome, listeners. Thanks for joining in, new and returning. We appreciate it. I am Fonz Tyson in the building. We got
Ryan Williams.
Oh, yeah, and special guest today we have...
Hi, I'm Kyle from Retro Bros.
Hi, Kyle.
Kyle from Retro Bros.
Retro Bros. All right. Well, again, welcome. We are doing yet another episode of Unsolved FearCast. Unsolved. What's your fear? We want to know it. We're asking people to come on down, and we're excited to have you, Kyle, to jump in on this. We appreciate your time and opening up to discuss what your fears are. And it's we're excited to deep dive into them. And we're just gonna go through a quick few questions. But first, so that everybody knows and understands. Hey, Kyle. So, do we have your okay and certification to use your voice likeness and visual acquaintance on camera and for production of Unsolved Studios, Unsolved FearCast?
Yes, you do. You have my permission.
A little bit of a pause there, but you know what? He's down here. He's ready to rock and roll, and he threw it in the game. Welcome to the hot seat. We're doing this.
It is, in fact, a hot seat.
Yeah, and that's why it's called the hot seat.
There's a reason why most of these podcasts are usually filmed at like 9 in the morning, and we're realizing that right now.
Yeah, it's
Gotcha.
It gets heated in this bitch.
It's gonna be wonderful in the winter because then you can just wear a coat. It'll be nice because it's gonna be freezing. It's gonna be like negative degrees in here. But it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is, and so we're all here to do it up, whether it's hot as fuck or cold as fuck. But either way, we're doing it.
Life is a series of give and takes.
Yeah, I get that. So today, Kyle, you have 3 specific fears that we are going to be discussing today. But again, I'm a doctor, but I'm not a doctor. All right, I cannot mentally cure you. I cannot physically cure you of any diseases. Neither can Ryan.
You two aren't doctors?
No, we are not professionals in any kind of faction, and we are just trying to discuss people's fears, maybe get an idea of like how people tolerate and deal with these things on the daily basis, and hopefully through this maybe we can help others, but we're not necessarily looking to diagnose anything. We're just discussing broad topics.
That's exactly well stated and well put, because we're just here to have some fun, deep dive into some stuff, and see the flip side of the coin for everybody else's different types of fears. Because when it comes to fears, certain people are going to have they don't want to talk about it, whether they're ashamed of it, too afraid to talk about it, or feel that someone just might make fun of them for it. I guarantee you there's individuals out there with like fears that everybody's afraid of, or the majority of people are afraid of. But there's also going to be fears where people, that they're just not so common, or not as common as they think and realize, and they're just too afraid to talk about it, so it's difficult for them to project it, and it's difficult for others to receive it and understand why they're afraid of them. So we are here to get that insight from individuals, from hopefully you listeners, what's your fear, and get you onto this podcast. But Kyle, we are jumping into your first fear, sir. You gave us 3, and I want to go down the list. None is more fearful than the other, but I do want to talk about, you stated that these were not necessarily just fears, but traumatic fears. Like they affect you within your lifestyle, within your daily day-to-day situations, and it's up to you, and it's up to the guests who come on to dive as deep as they are willing to within these situations. We appreciate all of our guests' time for coming onto this show. We appreciate the energy that you give to us, and we want to give that right back to you. And we just want to make sure that like you're settled and ready to do this. And like I said, we're excited. Your first fear, sir, was traumatic fear of the dark, which is very common for people. Now, this traumatic fear of the dark is the title for this, ladies and gentlemen, is nyctophobia. Nyctophobia. I think that's the Greek-ish term for it, for night or whatever, but also scotophobia or lygophobia. Either of those three, there's like weird genres as we were discussing in other episodes, but those are the three main of being afraid of the dark. Sir, why are you afraid of the dark? Deep dive into it. What are you afraid of?
Can I ask you a question?
Sir, go ahead.
Were you guys scared of the dark when you were kids?
100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is a 3 for 3 afraid of the dark here.
Done. Check.
So yeah, if
Oh,
there's
yeah.
like a statistic somewhere, it's like 3 out of 4 people. I don't know who that fourth person is.
Yep.
Was it always that way for you guys, or did it start at a certain point?
You know, I would say it would have, for me, it started at a certain point, I guess. I don't think I was always scared of it. I just one day I was like, oh shit, like what's in the dark, you know? And that was it. What about you, Ryan?
For me, I would classify it as a fear of the unknown, and yeah, been afraid of it forever.
Yeah. When I was real little, I was adopted at a very, very young age. Like, I went home with my adopted parents, like, day 3 of being born.
Okay.
And I've always had a crippling sense and fear of, like, abandonment.
Got
know?
you. Okay.
So, being a very small child, taken away from the mother,
Right.
and being in the dark alone, it was the most horrifying thing ever. And that persisted forever, just a fear of being alone.
Okay.
Till I was about 5 or 6. When I was about 5 or 6, I had what was it? I knocked over one of my grandmother's sewing kits,
Okay.
and she
Like
flipped
what? Like
the
a
fuck
whole
out.
big old one, or what?
Yeah, it was. It made a mess.
Got you.
It was like a big box, like almost a large jewelry box full of sewing supplies.
Right.
And she flipped out, started screaming. She locked me in a room.
Oh no.
No lights.
Oh no.
And I sat there for what felt like days,
Yeah.
weeks, forever. I was like 6 years old.
Okay.
And since then, it just permeated throughout my whole life until I was about 20 or so, of just being alone in the dark. I'd see stuff. It wasn't a fear of what could be there because my brain just made it.
Wow. So it not only, and that's one topic for the fear of the dark. It is like there's a different level of it. There's people who are afraid of the dark because it's just dark and they can't see. But then there's people who are afraid of what's in the dark, or the unknown of what's in the dark. And there's a difference between that. But to me, it sounds like, you know, not only did your mind have an essential thought of what was there, but it was physically, mentally, more so projecting it into existence for you within that area. Am I correct?
Yeah, it was already there before that inciting incident, which took years and years to,
Right.
uncover that memory.
Okay.
But it was always there because it was just a baseline fear of being alone
Yeah.
and being tiny and scared.
Okay.
But then once that it got forced just directly at me, it just started manifesting into visual hallucinations.
Wow.
And auditory hallucinations of just hearing voices or seeing faces.
And see, that's what kind of pushes things over from not just a fear or you being afraid of something. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do something because of superstitious reasons, or I don't want to do something this because they're afraid of it. But like, that's pushed often to the spectrum of an actual mental phobia, and it creates not only a physical reaction but also a very deep and traumatic mental reaction, and that's hard to deal with, and it's hard to get through those situations. And we're excited to talk about how do you get through those situations? Are you afraid of like just turning off the light in your room? Are you afraid to go out and at night? Like,
I would like to say I'm not scared of the dark anymore.
okay, got you.
I spent years and years trying to work through it, and what it eventually took for me was exposure therapy
Okay.
of wandering in the. I grew up in just outside Seattle, Washington, so there's giant forests everywhere.
Got you.
I would
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
yeah, lots of
Absolutely.
Bigfoots everywhere.
I've been up there, and yeah,
Maybe a couple.
I could totally see dinosaurs still existing in the forests of Seattle.
Every couple Starbucks, you run into a Bigfoot.
All right.
But I spent a real long time, it was probably about a year or so, every night just wandering through the woods in the pitch black by myself. And it was terrifying. It was horrifying. But eventually, you come to the realization there's not anything there. It's just you.
And see, I would, being a country kid, I would like to interject on that.
Mhm.
Yes, it's just you there, but yeah, dude, there are things there. There's things out, especially in the woods, and that's like what some scientists and doctors think is because there's so many people who are afraid of the dark. That why? Right? Why are there so many people just afraid? And a lot of people, or some of these scientists are saying it's because back in our ancestry, it's built into our DNA because they didn't have lights. So many hundreds of years ago? It's not even that long before we had electricity to project light into the darkness. And like humans were afraid. You had to be on edge in the dark in the woods. You had to be aware of your surroundings even when you couldn't see. And so they think that was either built into us or else just kind of passed down. The child learns it, sees a parent or sees an individual that they love in full-blown anxiety attack mode during a certain situation. And so the child learns that young to become reactive in that same way.
Yeah, it makes sense. Just the fear of predators,
Right.
Like your tribe of people you're with is passed out for the night because people are generally day people, and so you have to naturally be scared of predators or whatever else could be out there. It's not even necessarily a fear of the unknown. While it is, it's also just a naturally imbued fear of predators because at the base core we're animals.
That's true. Well, sir, that is one of 3. And we're going to be deep diving into a couple of more, ladies and gentlemen. Are you afraid of the dark? What's your fear? Are you afraid of what's in the dark? Are you afraid of what's in your closet? What's under your bed? Who knows? But we want to know. We're going to take a quick break, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching Unsolved FearCast.
You're watching Unsolved FearCast. What's your fear? Unsolved FearCast.
Ryan, rock and roll.
We are back with the Unsolved FearCast.
Unsolved.
What are you afraid of?
Sorry, I had to take it. Apologize. What are you afraid of, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Unsolved FearCast. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you listening, and we appreciate our guest, Kyle. Thank you for dropping into Unsolved Studios for Unsolved FearCast. Unsolved.
Anytime, buddy.
Yeah. Let's get a quick Unsolved from you. Oh, I like it.
Extra spooky.
Extra spooky. All right, so that first part, we were talking about your fear of the dark, which is very, very common.
Now, I just had a quick interjection real quick about that fear of the dark. So, one time I went to Carlsbad Caverns. I don't know if you've ever been down there. And as part of the tour, they take you down to this cavern where they have no extra lights. And then at the end of this, half-mile down hike, they have you turn off every single light. and you're sitting in a cave with just no light at all. And it's the most surreal experience because you know you're in a room of like 30 people, but all of a sudden you have no sense for anything.
It's the most terrifying thing in the world. For my birthday a few years back, me and a few friends went through the ape caves in central Washington, I think is where it was. I can't remember.
Excuse me,
But,
the ape caves?
Ape caves.
Oh.
I can't remember why they're called that, but the ape caves. And yeah, right in the middle of it, we were like, let's turn off all the lights real quick. And I was like, can we not? And they were like, no, we're going to do it.
Fuck that.
And so they turned off all the lights. It's the most surreal thing. It's you can be touching the person next to you, but you feel so alone because there's no stimulus. No stimuli, just like the sound of like water.
Damn.
Now, similarly, have you ever heard of sensory deprivation tanks?
I have always wanted to try one of those, but God, that sounds horrifying.
It's actually it's very interesting because for all the darkness and the lack of like any sensory inputs, because you can't even feel the water, there's just nothing at all, and you're just floating. It is very vivid in like it's almost as if like if you think about something you can almost manifest it into being visualized in front of you because there's nothing running on anything. And I remember having just thoughts while I was in there, and just like if I was thinking about a song, it was like I was listening to it in front of me, but it was very different. And I don't know, something maybe being that you've dealt with that fear of the dark, it'd be interesting to try and kind of gauge how that feels.
It's still silence still kind of gets me a little bit, but yeah, I've always wanted to try it, and as the years have gone on, I more and more want to try one.
Well, I have not done one of those. I think I might trip the fuck out one of those, but...
Wait. You mean you guys don't take hour-long baths where you just lay in the dark?
Weirdos. Yes, but I light candles. I'm not a savage.
Understandable.
You gotta have the music, man.
It's all about setting the mood.
Sometimes you gotta romance yourself, you know?
Oh, there you go, you know? Quality time. All right, switching back into gears. Oh,
Fear 2.
Fear 2. So with the fear of the dark, nighttophobia or scotophobia. You were also explaining part of your other fears that you were we were going to discuss today was your fear of silence. Hindered or not hindered, but also enveloped with your fear of being alone. And those are some pretty deep fears, and like the majority of those fears most likely would come from a traumatic experience. And we already discussed of a traumatizing experience, whether people think it was or not. Like, it is a traumatizing experience to have that sense of overwhelming fear projected into a small space, even in a large space. Like, it's overwhelming. It's what's the word? Well, traumatizing. It's a lot to deal with, and you can't just be like, all right, excuse my reference real quick, but turn the light on and off. Like, you can't do that, right? Like,
well, that happened, time to move on. Yeah, it's not how.
Yeah, no. And so, like, but enveloped with that time frame, your fear of being in silence and fear of being alone. And this might be different for individuals as well who are listening. They might not be afraid of being alone, and they might be afraid of being by themselves. But for a lot of people, it's a lot more common than individuals think. Is the fear to be just not just being the only one there, and there's the fears of that manifest themselves, even though if you're in a situation where you know that you're physically okay, you're mentally okay, but whether or not you're in the room by yourself, there's still the question of, well, what if? And I was reading up, I haven't had the full experience of being afraid to be alone. I love being alone. Like, I fucking lock myself in my room, fucking no sunlight, no noise, love it. Fucking throw me in a coffin, I will love that shit. But like, for others, like, let me, I guess for you, is it more of the fear of just being by yourself in that moment, or is it the fear of maybe like if an emergency happened, there would be nobody there to assist you? What, dig deeper into it. What's your fear for being in a situation of being alone or in silence?
Well, with silence specifically, it plays into the other ones, right? Like
Right.
it's still the fear of being alone, and it still plays into the original trauma with the fear of the dark. But with silence, I don't know how to describe it, and I have to so many people. It's the loudest sound that there ever could be, that there is in this world, is the sound of silence.
I can see that, like, because it is loud. It is, there's like I can feel a physical weight if I'm in a dead silent space. Like to me at least, I can feel a physical weight just like there. Like silence has weight, and it's I guess the absence of the vibrations in the air, right? So your eardrums aren't vibrating. You're not feeling that motion, that sense, right? It is a sensory deprivation at that moment because it's not there. It's silent. You can't hear nothing. And then I don't know the science between it, but then you can start hearing your ears ringing and all that stuff. And
It's that, yeah, the ear ringing. It drives me crazy. I can't sit in it for long periods of time. I've tried. I tried that with the exposure therapy, just wandering around in the woods by myself.
right.
No, I had a knife. I was prepared. I was fine. I was safe. But
I had some lunch.
but with silence, I have been trying for years to just get accustomed to being able to sit in it, and I just can't.
Yeah.
It brings out panic attacks. It's
Well-
terrible.
You and you live with a lot of people.
I live with 6 people. I, in my dream world, would live in a very large city. I like lots of noise being around all the time, even at night. I can sleep through whatever, but when there's always something going on, it's a nice comfort.
Okay, so let me ask you the question. Were you, because I was straight back mountains in the sticks, went to a mediocre sized city population of Albuquerque, New Mexico, right? Were you now? Washington is just, it's nature's there, just everywhere, right? It's you can't really get around it. It's one of the few places within the United States where there's actually more nature than human existence and conquering or whatever. So would you say that you were more? Did you grow up more involved in the country where it is more silent, or were you more so in the city as you grew up?
I grew up in Western Washington, which is the greater Seattle metropolitan area,
Okay.
which is like a series of semi-large cities,
Okay.
just all surrounding the Puget Sound, and Seattle's on the other side of the Puget Sound.
So
And in those cities, there's still large chunks of woodlands, which are mostly parks and stuff, but it was still city-esque. I grew up in a suburb, but
all right, city-esque with the opportunity to go into the woods. So I guess that's where I can see where like you're more comfortable inside an area with noise, with you can hear what's going on. Now some people are actually afraid of being in public alone. Is that something that you get any anxiety about?
absolutely not. It's one of
Okay.
the more comfortable things in the world. I love wandering through a crowd, just a million people around me that I don't know, but it still feels like you're part of something,
That see, I am more of that. Like I can't, or I'm more of the opposite. Like large crowds for me, dude. Like I can't. Like I have to see everybody's face. I have to know who's behind my back. I have to know like. I gotta keep people at a certain distance. Like it's fucking triggers, man. Like it freaks me out. It's hard to go to. It's hard to go to concerts. It's hard to go to like the mall and stuff. Like I'm always looking around, and I wouldn't say that I'm afraid to be alone in public. But if there's no one else with me and I'm the only one there, like I definitely have more of an anxiety pressure points, I guess, to be more aware of what the fuck's going on because I don't feel comfortable completely.
That makes sense. That's when I first moved to like a city, I moved to Denver for like a year,
Right.
and was the first time I was actually like on my own. I moved with a friend, but it's like on my own as an adult and in a new place. And there was some of that anxiety for a while of just I don't know how the people here
Right,
are.
get you.
I'm used to Seattle, where it's with a very well known thing called the Seattle freeze, where people don't talk to people. You
Okay.
don't talk to strangers. Strangers don't
look at me.
Yeah, you don't want to wave here. If you wave at someone, you're gonna get shot.
Hi. Do it. Coward. Come on.
Yeah, but what kind of crazy person is just driving down the road like, hi, everybody, Albuquerque, how you doing?
My dude.
Oh shit! It might be me.
Where I grew up, it was insulting not to wave at somebody as you drove past them, and it was super creepy because there'd be like vans of vans, plural vans of a Mormon family cruising down the street. Now just imagine one person driving, grip of heads from tallest to shortest going down through the other vans, them all just
a wave of
as
waving.
they're going by. Nah, didn't like it. Don't do it.
Yeah, that
I
sounds horrifying.
Moved down here, they're like, no, don't fucking wave at me. What do you like? What's your problem? Keep looking the other way. And then my kind of people. Oh man. All right. Well, what about you, Ryan? Are you afraid of being in public alone? Do you have any anxieties of being alone?
No, I would agree with Kyle here. In a crowd of people, it doesn't really bother me. I feel like I have an ability to maneuver around and just sometimes almost feeling like I'm invisible in a crowd and that the crowd doesn't really notice me because I'm not having an impact on them.
Okay, blending in.
The anonymity is pretty nice.
Urban-
one with the fishies.
Urban camouflage.
There you go.
You guys
Where'd you go?
barely known I was here at this podcast.
There we go. I love it.
Where'd you go?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is your fear?